We have a great deal to talk about today. First of all, I wanted to mention we have a development in the Republican Party, at least a county committee here in Idaho, and it is clear that there is going to be a schism, not only among Republicans nationwide, but statewide and perhaps on the local level as well, over Donald Trump and who's endorsing him and who's not. And what I'm referring to is a letter that I received in my email, and it's a copy of a letter that went to U.S. Senator Mike Crapo of Idaho, and it was dated and apparently sent on Tuesday this week, and it comes from a fellow by the name of Joe Menno, who is the chairman of the Idaho County Republican Central Committee. It's very brief. It's only 3 paragraphs long. I'm going to give you the final paragraph. With your announcement that you would no longer support Mr. Trump, in our opinion, you have relinquished your right to be associated with the party we represent. Effective immediately, the Idaho County Republican Central Committee will provide neither physical nor financial support to your effort to be reelected. We will not distribute signs or other campaign literature on your behalf. Those of us who have put signs up for you will remove those signs. You have lost our respect as a Republican and feel you are no longer worthy of the title Republican that we proudly wear. And again, that comes from Joe Menno, chairman of the Idaho County Republican Central Committee. I hope I'm pronouncing his name properly. It's got a O-U-G-H at the end, and that's usually Gaelic, and that usually ends up being O instead of an off or something along those lines. But it can have multiple pronunciations, especially if you're still speaking Gaelic. Since I'm not going to try any other pronunciations beyond that. 8 minutes after 8 o'clock, Bill Colley with you on Top Story this morning on News Radio 1310, KLIX, and newsradio1310.com. You have a great many Republicans. There was a story in the Christian Science Monitor yesterday afternoon. A great many Republicans over the weekend who fulminated and they said, we no longer endorse Donald Trump. Many of them have suddenly said, well, maybe we were a little too hasty. Gosh, I've been getting a lot of phone calls at the office from people who tell me I'm a jerk. So, I like Donald Trump. I know I didn't like him the other day, even though I liked him last week, but I didn't like him over the weekend. Now Donald's my friend again. There are a number of politicians around the country who've done that. Why have they done it? Because there's a writer at CNBC who I read today. His last name is Novak, and he says the reason this is happening is because there's a civil war still going on in the Republican Party, and Trump is clearly winning. The establishment no longer has the confidence of the rank-and-file Republicans in this country. They haven't been able to get it since Trump first announced. They couldn't get it while Trump was racking up early primary victories. They still couldn't understand it or see it while Trump was wrapping up the nomination. They can't understand it, nor can they see it today. In their minds, gosh, if we only had Jeb and a few more big bankers, we could continue enriching ourselves and telling everybody else it will trickle down on them. Or as Archie Bunker once called it, tinkle-down economics. They do not understand that people are upset that their country has been hollowed out, that we have spent billions on wars, trillions on wars, and have gotten very little out of it. And still somehow they say, well, William F. Buckley used to say, or, gosh, I was reading Jonah Goldberg the other day, and if you just read this white paper here, you'll understand. I'm sorry, but my kids are starving. Well, that's probably because you're a meth head and you haven't worked very hard in life. But, we'd like you to come vote for Jeb and the gang again, and we'll promise you everything will be better, just like we promised 4 years ago, 8 years ago, 12 years ago, 16 years ago. And here we are today. Now, will this hurt Mike Crapo? No. It's not going to hurt Mike Simpson either. Mike Simpson's candidate running against Mike Simpson, his opponent, she has 2 first names, and I think she's raised about 17 cents in her effort to try and unseat him. There's a very intelligent Democrat. I know that doesn't seem like it's possible. Bill, that's an oxymoron, right? But he's running against Mike Crapo, but still he doesn't have the resources, and he simply doesn't have the name recognition. So, and actually I will say this. If Crapo had come out by Monday or Tuesday and said, well, I've changed my mind, Trump's great, I don't know then that I would have any respect for him whatsoever if he did that. He made his decision. Allow him to live with it. He will win re-election, but I think that his relationship with a great many people in the party from here on out is going to be toxic. We have a telephone caller, and I want to pass along the telephone number quickly this morning. It's 736-0300, 736-0300, 32. A little warmer than when we started yesterday morning. We have a caller right now. Caller, you're on the air. Go ahead.
I kind of resent being lumped in with the establishment just because I don't like Trump. Trump is immoral. Everybody knew that he had all this dirt on tape because he's been on TV, and the media just wasn't releasing any of it because they wanted him to become our nominee so they could then release it, and it would all fall apart. And they planned it from the beginning. And honestly, I have no love for the establishment whatsoever, but I can totally understand why everybody wants to separate themselves from him, especially the House and the Senate. Anybody that wants to retain the seat should be scared because he's going to go down because of all the dirt that the media had on him all along.
Well, I'll tell you something. They have it on everybody because I had a comment
But
yesterday.
they don't have it on video, though. That's the difference.
Thanks for interrupting, by the way. They will have more of it on video. I just had a text message from a friend of mine yesterday who used to work on Capitol Hill, and he said the things that he used to see and hear in the dining hall, the cafeteria at the Capitol, make Trump look like a choir boy with what he's done and said. And I have been working around politicians now. Well, I've been in the broadcast business 30 years, but I was working as a campaign volunteer on campaigns long before that, so 35 years, we'll say. And let me just tell you something. None of these people that I've ever met are perfect. And the majority of them, the people that they like having around them, they like servile personalities. They feel that somehow they are royalty. They talk a good game about representing the people, but their real goal in life is to feather their own nests. Sometimes they do the right thing. Often they will do the right thing. But their primary goal, their primary concern ends at the tips of their own noses. That's what we have to keep in mind. And this notion, is Trump perfect? Of course not. But I've been a terrible sinner in my life. I was reading the other day, just how many times people sin by the time they have breakfast in the morning. Every candidate I've ever come across in major politics, if you go back far enough in their closets, I had a terrible, terrible period in my life between about the ages of 16 and 30, where all I wanted to do was hang out in bars and drink beer and chase women and my mouth got the best of me. And you know what? Then one day I had a bit of a conversion when it comes to my faith, and I changed. And I would hate to be judged by who I was at 25 when I'm 55. And that you got to keep your eye on the prize, folks. The country is falling apart, and we're talking about people's sex lives. You're up next. You're on the air with Bill Colley on Top Story. Go ahead.
Yeah, hello. I really don't care about Trump's past. I care about my future. And Trump saw what all of us saw, that things need to change. And I'm voting for Trump. And as far as Crapo and them guys, if they don't want Trump, I'll vote for the other guy. I don't care if they advertise or not. I don't care if they're Democrat or not. I'll vote for them just to let those other guys know that I don't approve of what they're doing.
And I think you're not alone. I have another caller with us. I want to thank the last couple of callers, and you're up next. You're on KLIX.
Excuse me. Anyway, I think the first caller kind of got it wrong because when we're talking about our candidate, we had 17 people in the primary. Now, 8 of those were at least constitutionalists and represented what we did. The primary came out in favor of Cruz.
Uh-huh.
We voted. Unfortunately, Cruz did not win. Trump is the nominee. And the thing of it is I hear Glenn Beck preach about being principled and stuff. The thing is you see Hillary and the crap that she's done for the past 30 years and is trying to get away with now, and the way her and her friends manipulate the system and sit and email each other.
All right, there's a point here, right? There's a point.
it comes to a point to where, okay, so what am I going to do? Am I just going to stand back, throw a fit?
Who are you voting for?
Who am I voting for? Actually, I'm undecided.
Oh, well.
Sure isn't.
Then what's
isn't Hillary, and I'm more I would be more towards Trump,
I thank you. All right, we finally got there. Whew. What is it, 9:30 now? No, it's 8:17. Bill Colley with you on Top Story. It's 33. You're up next on KLIX. Go ahead. Well, you were pretty close. I've got a couple of minutes here before we get to the break. I'm going to share this with you. All this talk. Pat Buchanan, who's one of my favorite all-time presidential candidates, made an appearance on Laura Ingram's program yesterday, I believe it was. And if you get a chance, I want you to take a listen to what he has to say.
That Hillary quote, that's exactly what they ought to zero in on.
She's talking about one world government, remember.
That Hillary quote, that's exactly what they ought to zero in on. She dreams of a common market of open borders and open trade and a borderless nation, and they're yelling about Trump's nasty words on a bus.
Well, I think it's what you and I have talked about and written about for many, many, many years now, which is there's a globalist party, and then there's a party that believes in sovereignty in the nation state. And
sure.
we don't need two globalist parties. I mean, we already have one, and that's the Democrat Party. We need a conservative party that is whatever you want to call it, Republican Party, something else that represents the average American worker and the American family that's struggling. And Trump represents that, and he's not perfect. He has flaws. We all do. And some of them are they're searing because they're on tape. But that line from Hillary confirmed everything that we believe about the Obamas and the Clintons and, frankly, the Bushes. And Paul Ryan is closer to Hillary, Pat, than he is to Donald Trump on these issues.
You're exactly right. Look, a borderless nation means the end of the United States of America. You've got a hemisphere of, 600 million people or something. They walk back across borders. That's the end of the country. That's the vision of the folks that wanted one Europe. Everybody can walk across the borders. And now Europe is trying to really defend itself against everybody coming across the Mediterranean. But look, and in the Republican Party, there's a pro-amnesty wing, a pro-open borders wing, and a pro-interventionist wing. And these are the ones that Trump is fighting.
So we're talking about a woman who wants to end the United States as we know it, dismember it, dissolution of the USA, dismantle it. That's not a threat? And yet, I don't like the way Donald Trump told a dirty joke, because I never have in my life, and I've never told a lie, and I've never taken a pen from work, and God loves me best. Get a life. 20 minutes after 8 o'clock, Bill Colley with you on Top Story on News Radio 1310, KLIX, and newsradio1310.com. More on this subject, more of your telephone calls on the way after the break. For those people who are struggling with who they're going to vote for on Election Day when it comes to the election for president, there's a Christian writer today who has some thoughts on that, Eric Metaxas, who is very talented talk show host as well, and you may soon be hearing him on this very radio station. Speaking of hearing, if you're having difficulty, we'd like to recommend you see the folks at Mount Harrison Audiology in Rupert, where Dr. Christine Pickup has been doing a lot of research on hearing loss and how to restore that. She'd like to open your world to new sounds and experiences and new hearing devices available, which works with the brain to help those with hearing loss hear more naturally than any previous aid on the market. We offer a free 2-week trial with these new devices. You can call today to schedule your personal fitting appointment. Open your world to better hearing. Call Mount Harrison Audiology at 312-0957. That's 312-0957. Metaxas is a talk show host. He's a Christian. He does a talk show that I guess could be described as a hybrid. It's a political talk show, but it's a Christian talk show. It's a little of both. And he's writing in the Wall Street Journal today. He says, many say they won't vote because choosing the lesser of two evils is still choosing evil. But, he writes, this is sophistry. Neither candidate is pure evil. They are human beings. Children in the Middle East are forced to watch their fathers drowned in cages by ISIS. Kids in inner-city America are condemned to lives of poverty, hopelessness, and increasing violence. Shall we sit on our hands and simply trust that the least of these to God as though that were our only option. Don't we have an obligation to them, he asks. And then he goes on to say this. If Hillary Clinton is elected, the country's chance to have a Supreme Court that values the Constitution and the genuine liberty and self-government for which millions have died is gone. Not for 4 years or 8, but forever. Same argument is being made by Cal Thomas, another Christian writer who was writing in the Washington Times this week on Monday. Metaxas goes on to say, many say Mr. Trump can't be trusted to deliver on this score, but Mrs. Clinton certainly cannot be trusted. For our kids and grandkids, are we not obliged to take our best shot at this? Shall we sit on our hands and refuse to choose? 736-0300, News Radio 1310, KLIX, and NewsRadio1310.com. At Bill Colley with you this morning on Top Story. Caller, you're up next. You're on the air.
I think people that are not going to vote.
One call a day, folks. You know, if you want to host your own show, send me a resume or send it to my boss. But this notion that you're going to take it over, hijack it, or do whatever you please, or get a blog if you've got a need. But the fact of the matter is, I'd like to open this show to more and more voices, and you've got some people out there who think they have the knowledge, and they've got to constantly share it with everybody else. That's a liberal thought process. That's not a conservative thought process. You're up next. You're on the air with Bill Colley. Go ahead.
There are 3 co-equal branches.
I'm sorry. You know, dude, as I said earlier, get a life. Thank you very, very much for the call. Bill Colley is bill.colley@townsquaremedia.com. You can also email me if you'd like to vent. But as I say, I am not turning this program over to the people who think that it's Hyde Park in London. If you want to make a statement, go down and stand in City Park today, and you can do it, and you can take all the time you want, at least until dark, when I think legally you have to leave. We have a caller with us as we head toward the break this morning at 8:30. Caller, you're up next on KLIX. Go ahead.
Bill, the Clintons are dangerous people. Recently on TV, I saw where they said that the bombs that destroyed Nagasaki and Hiroshima are 10 times more powerful. There's all sorts of weapons out there. When the airplane crashed on the front of the Wall Street or the White House during Clinton Gore, the White House staff laughed and it said it had to be CIA Chief Woolsey trying to see Clinton. Clinton met with Monica more than he met with CIA Chief Woolsey. The Clintons are dangerous people.
We're going to talk about that and who actually is the victim of sometimes their dangerous actions in the next hour, without going too much into detail right now, because oftentimes we've heard during this election season, we've got the goods on the Clintons and we're going to release them on Wednesday, and then it comes out and it's instead of an explosion, it's a pop gun blast that ends up coming our way. But there is a fellow, there's a group of them, but they go by the single name Anonymous, and they wear those Guy Fawkes masks. These are the masks where they have the mustache. He was a medieval character. He tried to blow up Parliament, and he ended up getting chopped into pieces because of his actions. But they are people who are, call them, I think the word we've used in the past is, they don't believe in government at all, but they also don't like the Clintons, and they claim that they have a devastating videotape of Bill Clinton committing an actual act of rape. Now, that may sound like it's a little too much, and they may not actually have it. As I said, we've had these people before who've come out and say, it was WikiLeaks that said a couple of weeks ago, Hillary's campaign is coming to an end in a couple of days, and then it was like, yeah, okay, tell us something we didn't know already. But this is, if it's true, you got to leave the door open that possibly they may have access to this. Anarchist, that was the name I'm looking for. That's what they are. They claim that they have this videotape, and if that thing gets, I know Hillary Clinton can say, you can't, blame me for my husband's actions, but her history is an enabler. If this videotape actually exists, Hillary Clinton's campaign is done. And likely Tim Kaine will become the nominee by default. We're going to be joined by Dan Taub coming up in a few minutes from the Twin Falls County Sheriff's Department. It's 8:30. Bill Colley with you this morning on Top Story on News Radio 1310, KLIX, and NewsRadio1310.com. It's 35 on our way possibly to 70 today, but don't get used to that.